and this is the Nonprofit Corner Podcast with your host, Dr. Victoria Boyd. Okay, and welcome to the Nonprofit Corner Podcast, and this is your host, Dr. Victoria Boyd, and I have a special guest today. His name is Rooney AKPESIRI. I had to ask him how to pronounce his name. Guess what? I got it right. So I'm so excited because he has a really valuable resource. It's called the Nonprofit School. And he has all different types of training and resources on there. But we're going to talk about it soon. But welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you decided to come on and join us and really contribute to the nonprofit sector by giving them some information. So just tell us a little bit about your background, how you got to be where you are today, what interested you in becoming a supporter of nonprofits. Go ahead, tell our listeners all about that.
Thank you so much, Victoria. And you did a great work pronouncing my name. That's one thing I've out here. Yeah. So, as you all know from Victoria, my name is Rooney AKPESIRI. I am a non-profit consultant. I got into the non-profit space some 8 years ago when I decided to start out my own non-profit as a young founder.
Okay.
It's an easy journey then. You know how it is, starting out something you've never done before. But, with the passion, with the commitment, I was giving it my all. But I really struggled. And at first, when I started, my goal was to equip young professionals with the knowledge, the resources, the tools they need to be able to contribute to community development. And I was quite successful with that. We brought in people, professionals from all walks of life. We're all part of what we're doing. We're, taking on programs, raising money, and really going. But being an inexperienced founder, I experienced so many challenges.
Absolutely.
I lost my team. At the time, it was difficult raising money. I was, trying to build the organization, trying to raise money, sustain the momentum. It was all difficult. And that took me down the journey where I wanted to learn how to really do this because I knew this was a calling for me.
Absolutely.
I've always said that my purpose is to be able to teach others on how to serve humanity and also serve God. So I knew I needed to go down the path of learning, and that I did. I started out reading Introduction to Community Development. I met the author who was Brown, Professor Dave Brown, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, one who was already into the nonprofit space, for a long time. I consumed that resource and I learned so much. I had to reach out to the author, and then I started reaching out to other professionals, started building my knowledge base, asking questions, going back to implement. As I was doing this, I began to grow. I began to understand what the work was all about. And down that line, I met others like myself who started nonprofits and were going through these challenges. So I to them, just like, I reached out for resources. And for years, I was helping people freely. I wasn't getting paid. For years, I kept volunteering, helping other organizations, helping them get their board right, helping them structure their organization the right way, helping some people get started in a nonprofit space, showing them how I was able to raise money in my time. That was what really brought me into the nonprofit space. And sometime around after the coronavirus, I felt this was something, I could really turn into a full-time career. Actually, somebody told me something. He said, if you know how to do something very well, never do it for free. So I was at that point where I was basically like, I was awesome. Everybody was saying, this guy is, I was like the go-to person. And I was a part of a community, Blacks in Nonprofits. A lot of people were reaching out, So I decided to take it on as a full-time career. That's after running businesses, because I've also run various businesses and a nonprofit. And then I came into, the consulting space full-time. I started helping other nonprofits, making money from this awesome, career that I've built for myself. And that's how I've come this far. And today, it's not just all about helping startup founders. I also help organizations get their board right. I help organizations through strategic planning from small to big size organizations.
Mhm.
I teach now. I've transited into, showing founders how these things are done. And that's what the fundraising school for nonprofits. So on that platform, we get to teach founders what to do, how to do it, and how to get their board along, how to create the results they've always desired. Because I believe it's the more you know, if you know, the better, right, results you can create. So most of the founders who are struggling are usually because of the fact that they do not really know what to do. They don't really understand the entire concept. So
Absolutely. I mean, well, you have to realize, I mean, and I've discovered this, and you probably did too, that many founders, they come with that passion. And I applaud that passion that they want to make a change in the world, but they come from all walks of life. It might be a grandmother, it might be, somebody that's never even been in the business world. And nonprofits, in fact, I hate the word nonprofit, but that's, it's a for-purpose business. And you need to know some of those strategies. Or if you don't know the strategies, know where to find someone with that expertise is that can support you and bring that knowledge. And I love that you were on a whole journey of learning all of this stuff. I have a big thing. Knowledge is power, and knowledge is profitable. So it's setting them on a path, and many times they get so submerged in looking at their mission, what they're trying to do, they don't really look at the operations, because a lot of what you're talking, the tools that you have, are about operations and management and putting that internal system together so that their external programs can be valuable. And I love that concept of what you're doing. I went on your website. Yes, I did. Always go on there and check it out. But it's great that you have a wide range of different topics. And I know you have one that was strategic planning, one was a business plan. Now I get on my little soapbox here, and maybe I'll get some feedback from you. I believe nonprofits, and okay, I'm going to back up. I challenge when organizations or individuals go to community development organizations like small business development centers or SCORE. Many times those counselors are from an executive business background, and they're very comfortable telling them to write a business plan. But I believe they should start by writing a program plan where they're really mapping out what their impact and outcomes, what they envision that to be, and then backing into, I use what is called the logic model. And that's one of the courses I teach. But if they really have their program mapped out, then it's so much easier to go in and then do the business plan and the strategic plan. Have you ever heard of starting with the program plan?
well, I think the program plan for me usually is a part of the strategic plan. I'll explain. When you want to start up a nonprofit, especially for startup nonprofits, right, you don't entirely know what is at stake out there.
Right.
So my advice is at the beginning, right, create a plan. You can call it a program plan, you can call it a business plan, whatever you want to call it. But that's not really you. That plan isn't really you going into details. It's just you expressing your ideas, your insights, putting it into, writing it out.
Right.
That's like, because that will give you some form of clarity.
Yeah.
It's
And that's, I guess that's why I love the program plan, because it makes you think about what are we trying to deliver? And what change are we trying to make? How are we going to deliver? And then you take that information, that knowledge, and
Mhm.
that's when you can really build out the strategic and business plan, because the business plan not so much strategic, but the business plan will look into market feasibility. You said what's out there. And I because I help people start nonprofits too. I make them say, so a lot of like, okay, if it's somebody who wants to do something with animal rescue, I was like, so have you looked in the neighborhood and community to see what other animal rescues are out there? Because there's really tons of those. And what is going to be your unique service that you're providing that they don't provide. So that when you said, checking what's out there, I love that you said that, because it's that market feasibility that they're looking at to see, okay, will this even be viable? And also I make them think about branding. I'm heavy into marketing. They'll come with a strange name, and I'll say, so how will people find you with that name? Or, it really doesn't say what you do or who you are. And I try to make them think, okay, branding and the name that you pick also, is that name available in terms of a domain? Does somebody else already have it? Once again, that's market feasibility. All of those things fall under that umbrella of what you're talking about. And I love that you're getting them early to make them think about that stuff, because like I said, they come with that passion. Passion's not going to carry them through. It's really not going to carry them through. Okay, we'll get more into board recruitment and things like that. But when they're just starting out, when do you really recommend that they look at who they want to have and bring on as their initial team? It might not even be board members, but when do you tell them to do that strategy?
So I have a 6-step process to starting up a nonprofit,
Okay.
and done this with a lot of successful organizations out there. Because why I created these steps is, when you've seen the entire picture, you've seen the loopholes, you now know how to help people navigate through the process so they don't, make mistakes or get frustrated when they get started. So the 6-step process is usually, it starts with the plan.
Yep.
That determines visibility, that helps you put your ideas to paper,
Yep.
think of research. Once you're done with that initial plan, that's just, I don't even take that first plan as a very serious plan, because why? I'll tell you. A real plan, right, is not just created by just the founder.
No.
Real plan has to be created by the board. And there's a
I
reason
believe
to
all stakeholders.
Yeah. Of course, the board will entirely facilitate the process, involve the entire community, the stakeholders, right? But there's a reason why your board members must be involved in the planning process. There's a saying in community development: people who plan together execute together. So
Absolutely.
the first step is just you doing your own small planning, doing your market research, identifying where you fit in and, your whole idea. The next step is then you going out to bring in board members. It's very important you bring them in early.
Yes, absolutely.
You're reaching out, and if you did that initial planning phase, you're not just reaching out to say, I'm trying to do this. You're providing them some form of resource that says, this is what we're trying to do. Do you think you are aligned? Of course, I have an entire process of bringing in board members, but the second,
we're gonna get to that recruitment. That's really important.
Yeah. So the second, you bringing in these board members, using that resource you created at the initial stage, saying this is, and then once you're able to bring in, say, 4, 5, you all are 5, you 4 board members, the next step is now the strategic planning phase. Because now you've laid the plan, you've laid the table for them to say, this is what we want to do. What they are basically doing in the strategic planning phase is they are building on that initial plan you created.
Yep.
So come together, you do the research, you reach out to the bigger community, reach out to the stakeholders, and then you put a plan together that says, this is what our organization is going to be all about.
Yep.
This is the kind of help. These are our programs that's going to help these communities.
Yep.
This is what helps us to implement our program. These are the people we need to run the.
Yep. You're absolutely in alignment with what I was saying. You start with that program plan because that's your document you use to pitch or, recruit those board members. They have to see what it is you're trying to do. And I guess that's why I said you do this program plan. Now, I'm not saying it's really, really detailed, but it gives the impact. It gives what change you're going to do and a cursory or a overview of how you're going to do it. Is it training? Is it face to, bringing them into a center? Is it going out into the streets? So that then you take that program and now you have something to present to potential candidates. And that's really what I was trying. You start with that program plan because it is the basis of strategic plan, business plan, and everything. And you need that to recruit. You need something to talk about. You need your talking points. What can I say? Okay, we're going to take a real brief break here, and then we're going to come back and talk about nonprofit startup process, board recruitment, and corporate sponsorship. Those are like three of my top topics that I like. Anyway, we'll be right back with the Nonprofit Corner podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Victoria Boyd. Programs are the heartbeat of a nonprofit organization. Come learn how to create a program plan that is not only effective, but will help grow your organization. Visit nonprofitcorner.org. And welcome back to the Nonprofit Corner podcast with your host, Dr. Victoria Boyd, and my very informative guest. Rooney has so much information. And so now we're going to get into some details because in his nonprofit school, he has tons of training and resources and things that you can access. So let's start with fundraising because you listed 4 things here. Fundraising was the very first thing. And most nonprofits think that is their biggest challenge, but there's so many layers that go into that. I believe marketing is their biggest challenge because if nobody knows about you, they're not going to give to you. So that's why I guess I'm focused. But tell us about your fundraising support that you give.
Okay. So like you said, most nonprofits, the number one challenge is fundraising because money is like the lifeline of every nonprofit. With money, you can execute your programs. With money, you can bring in staff to work with you. With money, you can scale your organization internationally, globally, So fundraising is a very important topic. And I've seen that lots of founders approach the topic of fundraising the wrong way, right? I think it's all about, this is this idea, online donation, and then they run into it. And, the next they are out pursuing the next idea, it's grants, they run into it. And so it's usually that process of, hit and run, try and error, trying to see, it's usually frustrating because when you go through that process over and over again and you don't see results, you are like, well, it's time to give up. But there is a standard process to raising money. And the process starts with creating a fundraising plan. Without planning, you are most likely never going to, give your best. You may never identify the leverages you have. You wouldn't even know your fundraising goal. And that means any target is going to just be your target. They said any man who does not know where he's going to, we think, anywhere is his direction, right? So
can't plan a trip without a destination.
Yes, great. So fundraising planning is like the very first step of the equation because first you want to define how much are we looking to raise, and not just how much are we looking to raise, what would be the impact of this money we're looking to raise. So and not just what would be the impact, what timeline are you looking to raise this money? These 3 factors make up your fundraising goal. So your fundraising goal, let's say, for example, you're looking to raise $50,000 to empower 1,000 women over the course of 1 year, then your fundraising goal will be, we're looking to raise $50,000 to empower 1,000 women over the course of 1 year or over the course of 2024. So it's very important you capture it in that light because that's how traction to that goal. If you just say it's $50,000 nobody's going to look at it as
No.
anything.
Yeah, you're trying to tap into their passion, that to see that you're letting them know that their money is having impact, and it deals with the language, the content language that you use. Also, language can get in the way because, like you said, if you just say we're trying to raise $50,000, or you can say, especially like in annual funds where you have it on a website or something, you have to say that this will support our programs, our organization mission. Because if you do a fundraising strategy, and you probably, I'm talking to the leader here, but preaching to the choir, they get in trouble by saying this money is specifically for one they really target that. It becomes restricted funding. And you want to be able to bring in funds that you can use to make the organization grow.
So it's like you said, the language is very important. And what I do with most nonprofits is we, juggle around this goal to make sure we have the right phrase that captures the attention of, your audience, right?
Yep.
Very important. They know this is what the money is going into. Like, this is the impact. And I'll say this, never mention money as a nonprofit founder without attaching it to the impact.
Yeah.
Whether it's your goal, your communications, always make sure money goes with the impact it's creating, because you are in the business of impact. That is something you should put ahead of you at all times.
Absolutely. And your impact statement, which could be called your purpose statements, are developed in your, here we go again, program plan. There we go again. Okay, fundraising. Now, it's impossible for us to give all the strategies in this podcast, but let's jump. I want to jump to corporate sponsorship, because that also is a form of fundraising, but it comes, or it's under a different umbrella. It could be under marketing or whatever. So let's talk about corporate sponsorship.
Okay. So normally, right, in the fundraising planning, we identify the 3 best fit fundraising strategy for an organization. So this could be corporate sponsorship, it could be online donation, it could be major gifts, right? Just name any kind of fundraising strategy. Depending on that organization, we're going to identify what's the best fundraising strategy. And this is usually tied to who are those who are most likely to sponsor this organization.
Yes.
Woman, an organization that empowers women, let's try to narrow down who are going to be the people who are most likely going to sponsor this organization. Businesses owned or run by women,
yes,
are going to sponsor. So with that, we can now conclude that corporate sponsorship should be a good way to raise money for this brand.
It's alignment. Yes, you got to find that alignment.
So now when we take it down to corporate sponsorship, that's now when we now go out there to identify how many businesses owned by women in this community, in this jurisdiction, right? We have a list of these businesses. Next is we want to create the resources that's going to go into that campaign. If it's a it's a sponsorship proposal, sponsorship agreement, marketing messages, whatever that has to go into that campaign, we have to have all that created.
Yes.
Because what nonprofit is, it's easier. How do I put it? When the soldier is going to war, right? He's likely going to win if you provide him a good rifle and whatever.
Your tools, that sponsorship package, because that's where you talk about your impact, who you're reaching, the change you're going to make, also how it will benefit the corporation. That's why alignment is so important, because they're looking for what's in it for me. And often the nonprofit has to get out of their own head. We, but you will benefit from becoming our partner or supporting us.
Give you an example of that. Now we're saying women. Let's say, for example, we want to find a perfect alignment for an organization that empowers women. We can look for an organization run or owned by a woman that produces women products.
Yep, now, absolutely.
Now,
See, in the back of my mind, Dove soap jumps out because they shifted their whole marketing campaign to self-esteem for women.
wow.
They stopped showing the bar of soap or something in the commercial, but started showing powerful women that were using their soap. So it just brought to mind when you were talking about empowering women, that would be a perfect alignment, a product like that supports women. Okay, I want to get it because we're talking a whole lot here, but let's jump to we talked a little bit about it, board recruitment. Let's just give a few highlights of board recruitment.
Yeah. Okay. So board recruitment is, the quality of people you bring into your board determines how far your organization goes. So if you look at bringing in your friends, your circle, it means your organization is going to be limited to your circle.
Yeah.
You get it? That's why it's really important you try as much as possible to bring in professionals, to bring in people with diverse experience, people who are aligned, not just professionals and diverse experience, but of course they're aligned to your mission. So
Absolutely.
there are ways you have to put out your board recruitment to be able to bring in these kind of people, because these aren't people who are just going to jump on any ship, right?
Absolutely. That whole vetting process, I had another guest on and we were talking about boards and getting them engaged. But and we talked about, because I've been approached where first time meeting this woman and she gave me this packet and asked me to join the board. I was like, I don't even know you. I didn't say that, but in my mind, I'm like, no. But we talked about the nonprofit nominating committee that's on the board. Yes, that's we're in the early stages right now where we're just getting board members on there. But the founder can do this too. Take time to vet possible candidates. Invite them to hear or participate in something, because you want to see if they're truly engaged or really have a passion for what you're doing. Because otherwise, if they're not engaged with a passion, they believe in what you're doing, their involvement will be just surface level. So yeah, board recruitment, once again, is a process. Your initial board members, I'm sure, you tell them, well, I tell them to start small, because a big board is so hard to manage when you're brand new. You need to have an odd number just for voting purposes. But sometimes I say, don't go over 5, because you have crucial decisions that need to be made pretty quickly when you're just starting up. And you need to have people that believe in the mission, are ready to get their boots deep, ready to hit the ground running, get those boots working.
Yeah.
And I think it takes a lot of pressure off the founder if they get those few key people that they know that they can rely on initially, and then worry about building later. Um, they get, oh, how many, I'm just trying to find board. Okay, stop stressing about that. A few key people can put all of the initial pieces together for you, but it will take time to really build. Also, I noticed they always say, well, I need a CPA and a lawyer. And I come back and say, well, do you plan on getting in trouble? I mean, are you going to need a lawyer where you need some legal
Yeah.
representation? Look at who you are, what you do, and then go into the community. Once again, just like with corporate sponsorship, find alignment. Look at what tasks, what skills do you need? It might be that you need a marketing person. It might be that you need someone in real estate. You might be opening up group homes or whatever. So, lawyer and CPA isn't always the first
Yeah.
people that you need to put on your board.
That's why I usually say everything starts with planning. When I work with organizations to bring in board members, the first step is planning. We want to identify what are the skill sets you need. Who are the kind of people you need? We're going to have to define all these before going out there, because you
Absolutely.
just anybody. And like you said, for already established board, trying to bring in new board members, like you said, start small. that really stuck because what I've done with most boards recently is when we're bringing in new board members, we'll first of all bring them into the advisory board.
Yes. Okay.
Directly into the board. But first of all, come into the advisory board. There we engage them. There we begin to sort their expertise, their advice. By doing so, you begin to identify those who are really passionate about this
Yes.
mission. Those who, naturally they come forward because that's what has always happened.
Yeah. Just their personality, the characteristics of what they're interested in. And just because someone works in a bank doesn't mean they want to do finances. They might, I always say, ask them what they want to do, before you, in your mind, assign it. Okay, really need to, you are offering a fundraising planning workbook that they can access. Tools for nonprofits is always exciting and valuable. So what's in this planning workbook?
Okay, so it's like I said, fundraising planning is like the first step to raising money. And we've seen lots of nonprofits don't even go that path. They just want to jump in. And so what the book is all about is helping them plan their fundraising all by themselves. Now, you don't need to walk you through creating a fundraising goal, identifying your fundraising strategies, defining the marketing that has to go in, identifying the team that you need, and then creating a fundraising budget. You don't need me for that anymore. What that fundraising planning workbook does is it guides you through that process.
Okay.
It provides, a space for you to create your fundraising goal and then provides you instruction that helps you define that all by yourself. I do charge for my services, and sometimes we've seen organizations who can't or who wouldn't want to bring out this money for, such help. So what we do with that is, with that resource, you can be able to do it all by yourself.
Very good. Very good.
Process.
You're empowering them to become independent. And actually, when you have a planning workbook, they can go back to it over, as things grow, as things evolve, they can go back and make it. It's almost like your strategic plan. That's a work in progress.
I have a manual and a workbook for strategic planning as well.
Okay.
So this resource, you and your board can actually come together and take on these exercises. By doing that, you gain more clarity, you understand what you want to do. And at the end of that planning process, you can delegate responsibilities among board members, among volunteers, and you all can begin to execute collectively. So that's what the planning workbook is all about. Rather than jumping into the fundraising, first plan. And if you can be able to do that by yourself, if you are willing, you have the passion, because most founders have the passion, and willing to learn, then that's really
yes.
you.
Absolutely. I think a key word that we keep using over in all of these different strategies is planning. Really thinking about being strategic about what you do and plan versus just jumping in because that's what you heard or saw on the internet. That's what other people are doing. You have to really plan and think about it. Okay, if people want to reach out to you, can they use that Rodney at nonprofit-school.com to reach out to you and ask questions? And
yeah, you can reach out to me through Facebook.
Okay,
Link.
absolutely.
Yeah, because the email thing may be quite confusing for you. But though, if you have my name, it's Rooney AKPESIRI at iCloud.com. That's a straightforward email. I'll pick it up and respond to you immediately.
Okay.
On Facebook, Rooney AKPESIRI. On LinkedIn, it's Rooney AKPESIRI. Just send me a message.
Yeah, I will put all of these ways to connect with you in the description of our podcast. So they will have, give me the one that's on iCloud. What was that one again?
Rooney AKPESIRI at iCloud.com.
Okay, iCloud. Absolutely. It has been a total pleasure. You're full of knowledge and strategies for nonprofits. Thank you for coming on the Nonprofit Corner podcast. Any last words of advice to our listeners?
Yeah, I think the last word of advice would be what we've been hitting on from the very beginning. Plan all the way through. I think it's one of the 48 laws of power. You plan all the way through. It's like playing the game of chess. The more you're able to see ahead, the more you have the opportunity or the ability to win.
Absolutely.
So you want to and define what you want, whether it's board recruitment, whether it's raising money, whether it's starting an organization. Start with planning. Put your ideas to paper, gain clarity, research, reach out, and begin to make it happen. So I think that would be the start for anybody who's serious on moving forward.
Absolutely. Plan. Thank you so much for being on the Nonprofit Corner podcast. And that's a wrap for today. And this is your host, Dr. Victoria Boyd, and we will see you next time.